My daughter-in-law Laura told me this morning that I should be grateful someone is willing to take me in. She said it while standing in my kitchen, holding the deed to my house. The paperwork is almost done, Helen. You'll be more comfortable in the assisted living facility. I smiled, thanked her for her concern, and said I needed to sort a few things in the attic. Up here, surrounded by dust and memories, I opened the old family photo album. My hands trembled as I turned the brittle pages. I had to find proof that my home is truly mine before the notary appointment tomorrow. Then I saw it. A photograph from the day of the fire. It wasn't the smoke or the flames that froze my blood. It was the figure holding a gas can near the shed, moments before it all began. The hero who supposedly saved me was the one who started the blaze that killed my parents. I carefully slipped the photo into my pocket. Laura called up, asking if I was all right. I told her I was just reminiscing, but inside, a cold certainty settled. I would use this evidence to stop them from stealing my life. I knew what I had to do: protect my home and expose the truth. Putting myself at risk was the price. If they suspected I knew, they might accelerate their plans. Laura was always on me, with daily visits and phone calls to the bank, ensuring all accounts were linked to her name. I needed to act before she transferred the property title. I decided my first step was to visit the county records office to verify the deed history. As I descended the attic stairs, my knee buckled. A sharp pain shot through my leg. Laura was at the bottom, watching. "You see, Helen? You can't even manage the stairs anymore." She didn't offer a hand. I steadied myself against the wall, my mind racing. What if the records had already been altered? I limped to the hall closet, pretending to fetch a sweater. Hidden behind the coats was my late husband's old lockbox, where I kept important papers. I fumbled for the key, my fingers clumsy with age. The box was empty. All the documents were gone. Laura smiled from the doorway. "I thought it was best to keep everything secure for you." She turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding. I still had the photo in my pocket, but now I had nothing else. I needed to find a new way to fight back, and fast. The social worker arrived unannounced for a wellness check. Laura must have called them. A young woman named Sarah stood in my living room, taking notes on a tablet. "We've received concerns about your ability to live independently, Helen." I offered her tea, my hands steady as I poured. I needed to appear perfectly capable until I could get to a lawyer. I needed to schedule a legal consultation without Laura knowing. The risk was growing that I could be declared incompetent. Sarah probed gently. She asked about my medication, my finances, my recent falls. I deflected, talking about my garden and the book club I attend. Then, as she was leaving, she mentioned offhand, "Your daughter-in-law has applied for guardianship. The hearing is in 3 days." My blood ran cold. I had to move faster. After she left, I dug out an old address book from a kitchen drawer. There was a lawyer my husband used years ago. I called, but the number was disconnected. Then, my landline rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Laura. "Just checking you're not bothering anyone with silly stories, Helen." I hung up without replying. I remembered a neighbour, Martha, who had recently dealt with a similar situation. I decided to walk over and ask for a referral. But as I opened my front door, I saw Laura's car parked across the street, watching. I stepped back inside, my plan thwarted for now. I needed another approach, and I thought of the photo still hidden in my pocket. Maybe it was time to use it. I took the bus downtown to the public library, where I could use a computer without being monitored. I aimed to research how to contest guardianship and find a new lawyer. I was exhausted and afraid of being followed. Every stranger's glance felt like a threat. Laura had made her presence felt everywhere. She had probably alerted her friends to keep an eye on me. At the library, I found a quiet corner and started searching. My fingers fumbled on the keyboard, but I persisted. I printed out forms for a power of attorney revocation and information on elder abuse laws. As I gathered the papers, a librarian approached. "Ma'am, is everything all right? You've been here for hours." I smiled and said I was just doing some family history. But then I saw him. The man from the photo, Robert, the so-called hero, walking through the library doors. He was older, but I'd recognize that stance anywhere. He didn't see me. I ducked behind a bookshelf, my heart hammering. What was he doing here? Was it a coincidence, or had Laura sent him? I waited, clutching my printed documents. He spoke briefly to the librarian, then left. I hurried out, but outside the bus was just pulling away. I'd have to wait another half hour. Standing at the stop, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Robert. "Helen? Long time no see. Laura said you might need some help getting home." His grip was firm, insistent. I pulled away, mumbling about meeting a friend. He didn't believe me. I got on the next bus, but he followed, sitting a few rows back. I had to lose him before my stop. I pretended to get off at a random stop, then doubled back through a grocery store to reach my lawyer's office. I'd found one online who specialized in elder law, and I had an appointment in 10 minutes. I intended to secure legal representation and show him the photo. The emotional toll was heavy. Recounting the past made my chest ache. Robert's presence was palpable. He might be waiting outside, or worse, called Laura. I slipped into the office building, taking the stairs to avoid elevators. The lawyer, Mr. Evans, was a kind-faced man in his 60s. I laid out the situation, the guardianship hearing, the missing documents, and finally, the photograph. He examined it carefully. "This could be significant, but we need more evidence. Do you have anything else?" I shook my head, feeling defeated. Then he suggested something unexpected. "We could request the original fire department report. Sometimes those old files have details that were overlooked." It was a glimmer of hope. As I left his office, feeling lighter, I saw Laura standing in the lobby. She must have followed me. "Helen, what are you doing here? You know you're not supposed to make decisions without me." Her voice was sharp, drawing stares. Mr. Evans stepped out and handed me his card. "Call me any time, Helen." Laura snatched it from my hand. "She won't be needing that." She led me out to her car, but I managed to slip the card into my sleeve. As she drove, I stared out the window, planning my next move. I had to get that fire report, no matter what. Back home, Laura installed a new lock on my phone, blocking outgoing calls except to her number. "For your safety," she said. I needed to find a way to contact the fire department or Mr. Evans without her knowing. I was isolated and felt like a prisoner in my own house. Laura tightened her grip. She announced she was moving in temporarily to help. That night, I waited until she was asleep, then crept to the kitchen. I remembered the old rotary phone in the basement, disconnected, but maybe still working if I plugged it in. The stairs creaked under my weight. In the dark, I fumbled for the outlet. Suddenly, the lights flicked on. Laura stood at the top of the stairs. "What are you doing down there, Helen? Sleepwalking again?" I pretended to be confused, mumbling about needing a glass of water. She sighed and came down, guiding me back up. But as she turned away, I saw Robert's car pull into the driveway. He was here. Why now? Laura didn't seem surprised. "Robert's staying over too. We have some family business to discuss tomorrow. My mind raced. Family business. The guardianship hearing was in 2 days. I needed to act tonight. Once they were both asleep, I would try the phone again. But as I lay in bed, I heard whispers from the living room. They were talking about me, about speeding things up. I held my breath, listening. Then I heard a word that made my blood run cold. Notary. They were planning to sign something without me. I had to get out now. But how? The doors were likely locked, and my keys were missing. I slid my hand under the mattress, feeling for the photo I'd hidden there. It was still safe. But for how long? I heard Laura and Robert settling in the living room, their whispers sharp in the quiet house. They mentioned a notary coming tomorrow morning to finalize papers. I had to act tonight. I needed to reach that basement phone and call Mr. Evans before it was too late. The risk was high. If they caught me, they might move me to a facility immediately. Laura's pressure was constant. She had taken my keys and locked the windows. I waited until the house was silent, then slipped out of bed. The floorboards creaked under my bare feet. I inched toward the hallway, holding my breath. Suddenly, a light flicked on in the kitchen. I ducked into the linen closet, heart pounding. Robert was getting a glass of water. He stood there for a moment, then shuffled back to the couch. This was my chance. I crept down to the basement, each step a gamble. In the dark, I found the old rotary phone and plugged it in. The dial tone was a sweet sound. I started dialing Mr. Evans's number from memory. But then, the basement door opened above me. Laura called down, "Helen, are you down there?" I froze, the receiver in my hand. I had to make the call now or lose everything. I whispered into the phone, "Help me," just as Laura's footsteps descended the stairs. I quickly hung up the phone, hoping my message got through. Laura found me standing by the washer. "What are you doing, Helen? You know you shouldn't be down here alone." She guided me back upstairs, her grip tight on my arm. I had to pretend to go along with it until I knew if Mr. Evans had received my call. The emotional toll was wearing me down. I felt like a child being scolded. Robert was awake now, watching from the doorway. Laura announced she was sleeping in my room with me, for my safety. That meant no more nighttime escapes. The next morning, Laura made breakfast, humming as if everything was normal. She said the notary would arrive at noon. I had to stall or find another way out. Then, the doorbell rang. It was Martha, my neighbour, holding a pie. "I thought you might like some company, Helen," she said. Laura tried to send her away, but I insisted Martha stay. This was my chance to disrupt their plans. A witness was here. As we sat in the living room, Martha mentioned she saw a man lurking around my house last night. Laura stiffened. I knew it was Robert, but Martha didn't recognize him. After Martha left, Laura turned to me, her face pale. "What did you tell her?" I just smiled. But then I saw the notary's car pull up outside. Laura grabbed my arm. "Time to sign, Helen." I had to think fast. The notary, a stern woman with glasses, set up papers on the coffee table. Laura handed me a pen. "It's just a formality, Helen. Sign here." I knew these documents would give her control over my property. I needed to stall signing until help arrived, if it was coming. Refusing might cause a scene, but I had to take that chance. Robert stood by the door, blocking my exit. I picked up the pen, my hand shaking. "I need my reading glasses," I said, stalling. Laura sighed impatiently. "They're in your room. I'll get them." While she was gone, I turned to the notary. "Do you verify all signatures are voluntary?" The notary looked uncomfortable. Yes, of course. Just then, my landline rang. Laura came back and answered it. Her face changed. She hung up and whispered to Robert. I couldn't hear what was said, but she turned to me. The signing is postponed. There's been a complication. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Laura leaned close. You think you're clever, Helen? We're moving you today. She started packing my bags. I had to find out what that call was about and use it to my advantage. Laura shoved a suitcase into my hands. Pack your essentials. We're leaving in an hour. I had to hide the photo and figure out how to get help from outside. Resisting came with a physical price. Laura pushed me toward the bedroom when I hesitated. Robert was on the phone, arguing with someone about legal delays. I packed slowly, slipping the photograph into my bra for safekeeping. Then, I remembered the back door key hidden under a flower pot outside. If I could reach it, I might escape. Laura was in the living room, on her laptop, probably dealing with whatever complication arose. I crept to the kitchen and peered out the window. The flower pot was just steps away. But as I reached for the door handle, Robert came in. Where do you think you're going? He grabbed my wrist, his grip firm. Laura, she's trying to run. Laura rushed in, her face furious. That's it. We're leaving now. She dragged me to the car. As we drove away, I saw Martha watching from her window. I caught her eye and mouthed, Help me. She nodded slightly. But where were they taking me? The car turned onto the highway away from town. I had no idea what came next. We pulled up to a bland, beige building, the Willow Creek Assisted Living Facility. Laura marched me inside, telling the staff I was confused and needed immediate placement. I needed to stay calm and find a way to reach Mr. Evans or the police from inside. The price was my freedom. I was stuck in an unfamiliar place with no one to help me. A nurse took me to a small room, devoid of personal touches. Laura handed over a folder of papers. She's all yours. Then she left, without a backward glance. I sat on the stiff bed, feeling utterly alone. But then, the nurse returned. There's a call for you, Helen. A Mr. Evans? My heart leaped. How did he know I was here? I followed her to the office phone. Mr. Evans said, Helen, I got your message. I've filed an emergency motion to halt the guardianship, but I need you to stay put for now. I explained where I was. He promised to send someone. After the call, I felt a glimmer of hope. But as I returned to my room, I saw Robert talking to the facility director. They were laughing. The director nodded and walked away. Robert approached me. Don't think you've won, Helen. We have friends here too. He left, and I realized the battle was far from over. I needed to secure that fire report now, more than ever. The facility director, Mrs. Gable, informed me that all my outside communications needed to be approved by my family. For your protection, Helen, she said, her smile not reaching her eyes. I had to find a way to call Mr. Evans without anyone knowing before the guardianship hearing in 2 days. Each hour trapped here felt like a lifetime, wearing away at my sanity. Robert's influence was clear. The staff watched my every move. That afternoon, during group activity in the common room, I slipped away to the library corner where a computer sat. I needed to email Mr. Evans about the fire report. My hands shook as I typed, but the computer required a login I didn't have. Just then, a nurse approached. Helen, you shouldn't be here alone. She guided me back to the common area. But as we passed the front desk, I saw a familiar face, Martha, my neighbor, signing in as a visitor. My heart leapt. She caught my eye and gave a slight nod. Mrs. Gable intercepted her. I'm sorry, but Helen isn't receiving visitors today. Family orders. Martha protested, but was turned away. As she left, she dropped a small piece of paper on the floor near me. I waited until the coast was clear, then bent to pick it up. It was a phone number for Mr. Evans, with a note. Call from payphone outside. But how could I get outside? The doors were locked, and I had no way out. Then, during dinner, I overheard two aides talking about a fire drill scheduled for tomorrow morning. That might be my chance. The fire drill was my only opportunity to reach a payphone. I needed to memorize Mr. Evans' number and call him during the chaos. If I failed, I could be placed in isolation, or worse. Laura called the facility to check in, but I knew she was ensuring I was still contained. The next morning, the alarm blared. Residents were herded outside into the courtyard. I spotted a payphone near the parking lot, just beyond the fence. As everyone milled about, I slipped away from the group, heading for the gate. It was unlocked during drills. I hurried to the phone, my heart pounding. I dialed the number, feeding coins I'd saved from my purse. Mr. Evans answered. I quickly explained where I was and about the fire report. He said he'd requested it, but hit a wall. The records clerk was stalling. Then I saw Mrs. Gable walking toward me, her expression stern. I hung up and pretended to be confused. I thought I saw my cat, I mumbled. She took my arm firmly. Let's get you inside, Helen. No more wandering. Back in my room, I found all my personal items had been searched. The photo was still hidden in my bra, but they'd taken my purse with the remaining coins. I had no way to call out again. But then, a new aide, a young man named Jake, brought my medication. He whispered, I saw what happened. My grandma was in a place like this. I can help. Was he sincere? Or was this a trap? Jake returned during his rounds and slipped me a prepaid phone. Use it wisely, he said quietly. I needed to call the fire department directly and request the report myself, using my old address and details only I would know. The risk was immense. If caught, Jake could lose his job, and I'd lose my only ally. Laura increased the pressure. She scheduled a family meeting with the staff for tomorrow to discuss my declining state. That night, I hid in the bathroom and called the fire department's records division. A clerk answered, and I explained I needed the report from the fire at my childhood home. He put me on hold. Minutes ticked by. Finally, he returned. Ma'am, that file was flagged. I can't release it without authorization from the chief. My hope faded, but then he added, but I remember that case. My dad was a firefighter then. He always said something was off about it. He agreed to email me a copy if I provided an address. I gave him Mr. Evans's email, thanking him profusely. After the call, I hid the phone. The next morning, Mrs. Gable announced that all residents' rooms were being inspected for contraband. They were going to search everything. I had to get the phone out of my room before they found it. I tucked the phone into my sleeve and joined the others for breakfast. I needed to pass it to Jake during his shift or find another hiding place. If discovered, it would prove I wasn't incompetent, but could get us both in trouble. Laura arrived early for the family meeting, her presence tightening the noose. As we filed into the dining hall, I saw Jake clearing tables. I bumped into him subtly, slipping the phone into his apron pocket. He nodded, almost imperceptibly. But then, Mrs. Gable called me into her office. Laura and Robert were there, along with a man I didn't recognize, the notary from before. Helen, Laura began, we're here to sign the guardianship papers today. The hearing was moved up. My blood ran cold. I had to stall. I need my lawyer present, I said firmly. Robert laughed. Mr. Evans is tied up in court today, it's just us. The notary laid out the documents. I refused to pick up the pen. Laura's smile vanished. Sign it, Helen, or we'll have you declared incapable right here. Just then, Jake entered the office, pretending to deliver a message. Mrs. Gable, there's a call for you. It's the police. Everyone froze. What did the police want? Mrs. Gable left to take the call. Laura glared at me. What did you do? I stayed silent, praying this was Mr. Evans' doing. Mrs. Gable returned, her face pale. The police are here to ask questions about an old fire incident. They want to speak with Helen. Robert stood up abruptly. That's nonsense. She's confused. But two officers entered the room. One addressed me. Ma'am, we're following up on a request from your attorney about a fire report. We need to verify some details. Laura tried to intervene, but the officer insisted on speaking with me alone. In private, I told them about the photo and Robert's involvement. They listened carefully and said they'd look into it. After they left, Mrs. Gable seemed nervous. She postponed the signing. Laura and Robert stormed out, warning me this wasn't over. Later, Jake whispered that the police had taken a statement from him too. He'd told them about the pressure I was under. I felt a glimmer of hope, but back in my room, I found a note slipped under my door. It was from Robert, written in crude block letters. Stop now, or you'll regret it. He knew where I was, and he wasn't backing down. I needed to get out of this facility and back to my home, where I could fight properly. But with the guardianship still looming, how could I escape? Robert's note lay crumpled in my hand, the block letters screaming a threat I couldn't ignore. Stop now, or you'll regret it. I had to escape Willow Creek before the guardianship hearing in 2 days. I needed to get to a payphone and call Mr. Evans with whatever new information the police had uncovered. It risked my safety. If caught, I might be sedated or moved to a more secure wing. Laura's pressure was constant. She had called Mrs. Gable this morning to confirm I was being monitored closely. During morning meditation, I saw Jake across the room. He nodded toward the hallway. When the session ended, I pretended to need the restroom and slipped out. Jake was waiting by the fire exit. The alarm on this door is disconnected for maintenance until noon. He whispered, You have 20 minutes. My heart pounded as I pushed the door open. I hurried across the parking lot to the same payphone I'd used before. I dialed Mr. Evans' number, feeding it the last of my hidden coins. He answered quickly. Helen, I have the fire report. There's a witness statement from a neighbor that was never followed up. It mentions a man matching Robert's description fleeing the scene. But we need you to testify. I agreed. But then I saw Mrs. Gable's car pulling into the lot. I hung up and ducked behind a hedge. She walked straight toward the facility, not noticing me. I had to get back inside undetected. I crept toward the door, but it was locked now. Jake was supposed to leave it open. I tapped lightly, but no one came. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Robert stood there, holding a set of keys. Looking for a way in, Helen? He grinned, dangling my house keys. I've been making myself at home at your place. You should see the changes I've made. My blood turned to ice. He had been inside my house, my sanctuary. Robert escorted me back inside, his grip tight on my arm. Mrs. Gable was waiting, her lips pressed into a thin line. Helen, you know the rules. No unauthorized outings. I was confined to my room for the rest of the day. I had to get a message to Mr. Evans about Robert breaking into my house. I felt utterly violated and helpless, the strain overwhelming me. Laura increased the pressure. She arrived with a suitcase of my clothes, saying I'd be more comfortable here long term. After they left, I paced my small room, searching for a way out. I remembered the vent near the ceiling. Maybe I could slip a note through it to Jake. I tore a page from a magazine and wrote a quick message. Robert, in my house. Urgent. I folded it and reached up, but the vent was screwed shut. Defeated, I sat on the bed. Then, a soft tap came at the door. It was Jake, holding a tray. I heard what happened, he said quietly. He slid a burner phone under my pillow. Use it and leave it in the laundry bin after. My hope surged. As soon as he left, I called Mr. Evans. I told him about Robert and my house. He said he'd send a paralegal to check the property and file a report. But then, my door opened without a knock. Laura stood there, her eyes narrowed. "Who are you talking to, Helen?" She strode over and snatched the phone from my hand. "I knew you were up to something." She left, threatening to have Jake fired. I was alone again, but I had one card left. The photo was still hidden in my bra. I had to use it soon. The next morning, Mrs. Gable announced that Jake had been let go for violating policies. My only ally was gone. I needed to get that photo to the police before the guardianship hearing tomorrow. The danger was increasing. Without Jake, I had no one inside to help. Laura visited, bringing papers for me to sign voluntarily, admitting myself to long-term care. I refused, my hands shaking. She sighed dramatically. "The judge will rule against you, Helen. It's over." After she left, I attended the required group therapy session. The topic was accepting change. I sat silently, planning my next move. During a bathroom break, I noticed a window in the hallway that led to a small garden. It was locked, but the latch looked old. I pretended to tie my shoe and examined it. It might be forced open. Back in my room, I used a bobby pin to try to pick the lock, but my fingers were stiff and clumsy. Just then, a new aide entered without knocking. "Time for your vitals, Helen." She took my blood pressure, her eyes lingering on my nervous hands. After she left, I tried again, but the pin broke. I was out of options. Then, I heard a commotion outside. Peeking through the door crack, I saw Martha arguing with Mrs. Gable at the front desk. "I have a right to see her. She's my friend." Martha's voice carried down the hall. Mrs. Gable refused, but Martha slipped a small object into the potted plant near my door before leaving. When the coast was clear, I retrieved it, a key with a tag that read, "Back Gate." Hope flickered once more. The key felt cold and solid in my hand. Martha had given me a way out. I needed to reach the back gate and get to the police station with the photo before the hearing tomorrow. It was terribly risky. If caught escaping, I could be deemed a danger to myself. Laura's pressure was unrelenting. She called every hour, checking on me. That evening, during the nightly news broadcast in the common room, I saw a report about a local arson case being reopened. My heart leaped. It had to be mine. But then Robert appeared on the screen, giving an interview about community safety. He was manipulating the narrative. I had to act now. I waited until late, when the night staff was doing rounds. I crept to the back hallway, key in hand. The gate was just beyond the laundry room. I inserted the key. It turned smoothly. I slipped outside into the cool night air. Freedom. I hurried toward the bus stop, but a car pulled up beside me. It was Robert. "Going somewhere, Helen?" He got out and grabbed my arm. "I think you've caused enough trouble." He tried to force me into the car, but I screamed. A neighbor's porch light flicked on, and Robert let go, cursing. He drove off, but I knew he'd be back. I ran to the bus stop, but the last bus had already passed. I was stranded, alone on the dark street. Then, a familiar car approached. It was Mr. Evans. He rolled down the window. Helen, get in. I got your message from Martha. Relief washed over me, but as I slid into the passenger seat, I saw Robert's car following us. Mr. Evans drove quickly, his knuckles white on the wheel. I filed an injunction to stop the guardianship, but we need to get you to a safe place, he said. I needed to hand over the photo to him and let him take it to the police. I was losing my home. I couldn't return there with Robert lurking. Laura had left multiple frantic voicemails on Mr. Evans' phone, demanding my return. We arrived at his office, a small brick building downtown. Inside, I finally gave him the photograph. He examined it under a lamp. This is compelling, Helen. Combined with the fire report, it should be enough to reopen the case. But then his secretary buzzed in. The police are here to see you. 2 officers entered, the same ones from the facility. They said Robert had filed a missing persons report, claiming I was mentally unstable and had wandered off. They insisted I come with them for evaluation. Mr. Evans argued, showing them the photo, but they were firm. We have to follow procedure, sir. As they led me away, I saw Robert outside, talking to a uniformed officer. He smiled, a triumphant glint in his eye. I was being taken back to Willow Creek, but this time it felt final. In the squad car, one officer turned to me. Ma'am, is there anyone you'd like us to call? I thought of Martha, but I knew it was too late. The car pulled away, and I watched my freedom disappear in the rearview mirror. The police car turned into the Willow Creek driveway, its tires crunching on the gravel. I sat in the back, hands clasped in my lap, watching the familiar beige building loom closer. One officer spoke into his radio. We're returning the subject now. Subject. Like I was a thing, not a person. The injustice burned. Robert's lies had twisted everything. I needed to find a way to prove my competence before the guardianship hearing tomorrow. Failing would mean a life trapped here, my home gone forever. Laura was waiting at the entrance, her arms crossed. As the officers led me out, she stepped forward. Thank you for bringing her back. She gets so confused. I kept my mouth shut, knowing any protest would be used against me. Inside, Mrs. Gable directed me to a new room on the 2nd floor, a smaller, more sterile space with a locked window. Laura followed, her heels clicking on the linoleum. This is for your safety, Helen. No more wandering. She left, and I heard the lock turn. I was alone, but not defeated. I checked my bra. The photo was still there. Then I noticed a small, folded piece of paper tucked under the pillow. It was from Martha, written in her neat handwriting. I saw everything. Evans has the fire report. Hold on. My heart lifted. But how did she get this in? The door opened, and a new aide entered with a dinner tray. She was young, with kind eyes. I'm Chloe, she said softly. As she set down the tray, she slipped another note into my hand. From Jake, she whispered. Jake was safe. The note read, Records show Robert had a juvenile arson charge. Evans is digging. This was new evidence, but as Chloe left, I saw Laura through the doorway, talking to Mrs. Gable. They were looking at me, and Laura pointed, her expression sharp. I had to act fast. But how? The lock clicked shut again. I unfolded Jake's note, reading it again in the dim light. A juvenile arson charge. That could connect Robert to my parents' fire. I needed to get this information to Mr. Evans immediately, but I was locked in with no phone. The emotional strain was wearing me down. My hands shook as I tucked the note away. Laura's pressure was relentless. She had scheduled a competency evaluation with a facility doctor for first thing in the morning, just hours before the hearing. That night, I barely slept. listening to the sounds of the facility. Early the next morning, Chloe brought my breakfast. "The doctor will see you at 9, she said, avoiding my eyes. As she turned to leave, I noticed she didn't fully close the door. It was slightly ajar. Was this intentional? I waited a moment, then peered out. The hallway was empty. This was my chance. I slipped out and hurried toward the common area, where I remembered there was a staff phone on the wall. But as I rounded the corner, I saw Mrs. Gable and Laura deep in conversation with the doctor. I ducked into a supply closet, my heart pounding. Through the crack in the door, I heard Laura say, "Just sign the forms, doctor. We need this done today." The doctor hesitated. "I need to examine her properly," Laura insisted. "She's a danger to herself. You have my word." Then they moved away. I stepped out, but Chloe was there, blocking my path. "Helen, you shouldn't be out here," she said, but her voice was gentle. She glanced around, then whispered, "The phone in the laundry room is unlocked during shifts. Hurry." She walked away, creating a distraction. I made my way to the laundry room, but as I reached for the phone, I heard footsteps. Robert stood in the doorway, holding a set of papers. "Looking for something, Helen?" He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The hearing's been moved up. It starts in 1 hour." Robert's words hit me like a physical blow. The hearing was now, not later. I needed to get to the courthouse or contact Mr. Evans to delay it. Every second counted, and I was trapped here with Robert. If I did nothing, I'd lose everything. My home, my freedom, my voice. Laura appeared behind him, her face tight with anger. "I told you she'd try something," she said to Robert. They escorted me back to my room, where Mrs. Gable waited with a sedation kit. "For your anxiety, Helen," she said, holding a syringe. I backed away, but Robert grabbed my arm. "Don't make this harder than it has to be." Just then, Chloe rushed in, out of breath. "Mrs. Gable, there's a call for you. It's the police again. They're at the front desk." Mrs. Gable hesitated, then left the syringe on the table and hurried out. Robert loosened his grip, and I pulled free. Laura glared at Chloe. "You stay out of this." But Chloe stood her ground. "The police want to speak with Helen about the fire report." My hope surged. Robert and Laura exchanged worried looks. "We'll handle this," Robert said, pushing past Chloe. As they left, Chloe quickly handed me a small prepaid phone. "Jake got this for you. Call your lawyer." I dialed Mr. Evans's number, my fingers trembling. He answered on the first ring. "Helen, I'm at the courthouse. The judge agreed to hear new evidence based on the juvenile record. But you need to be here. Can you get out?" I told him I'd try. After hanging up, I turned to Chloe. "How do I leave?" She pointed to the window. "The lock is loose. I fixed it. But you have to go now." I pushed the window open, but as I looked down, I saw Robert and Laura arguing with the police in the parking lot. One officer was pointing at Robert, and I heard the word, "Arrest." Was this it? But then, Robert broke away and started running toward the building. I climbed out the window, dropping onto a soft bush below. My knees ached, but I ignored the pain. I needed to get to the courthouse before the hearing ended. Mr. Evans was waiting, but I had no car and no money. The risk was high. If Robert caught me, he might do something desperate. Laura's voice echoed from inside, shouting my name. I hurried around the side of the building, keeping to the shadows. The back gate was locked, but I remembered Martha's key. I fumbled in my pocket. It was still there. I unlocked the gate and slipped through, emerging onto a quiet street. I started walking toward downtown, my pace slow but determined. After a few blocks, a car pulled over. It was Martha. "Get in, Helen. I heard about the hearing on the scanner." I slid into the passenger seat, relief washing over me. "Thank you, Martha," I said, my voice shaky. She drove quickly, her hands tight on the wheel. "Mr. Evans called me. He said to bring you straight to the courthouse." As we approached, I saw news vans parked outside. "What's happening?" I asked. Martha frowned. "Robert gave an interview this morning, claiming you're unstable and that he's trying to protect you. It's all over local news." My stomach twisted. We parked, and Martha helped me out. Inside the courthouse, Mr. Evans met us in the hallway. "Helen? Good. You're here. The judge is reviewing the evidence now, but Robert's lawyer is arguing that the photo is fabricated." We entered the courtroom. Laura and Robert were at the defendant's table, and Robert shot me a venomous look. The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes, addressed me. "Mrs. Helen, do you have anything to add?" I stood, my legs weak. "Your Honor, I have proof that Robert started the fire that killed my parents." I reached into my bra for the photo, but it was gone. I must have lost it during the escape. Robert smiled smugly. My heart sank. Then Mr. Evans stepped forward. "Your Honor, I have a copy here, and a witness from the fire department is outside." The judge nodded. "Bring in the witness." The courtroom door opened, and an elderly man in a fire department uniform walked in. He was the clerk I had spoken to on the phone. Mr. Evans introduced him as Captain Miller, retired. "Your Honor," Captain Miller began, "I worked on the original fire investigation. We had a witness who saw a young man with a gas can, but the lead was dropped due to lack of evidence. This photo matches that description." He pointed to the copy of the photo Mr. Evans held. Robert's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! This is hearsay from decades ago." The judge overruled. "I'll allow it." Then Captain Miller added, "And I have the original witness statement here. It names Robert Davis." The room erupted in murmurs. Laura looked pale, and Robert stood up, his face red. "This is a set-up!" he shouted. The judge banged her gavel. "Order! Mr. Davis, sit down!" I felt a surge of victory, but it was short-lived. Robert turned to me, his eyes blazing. "You think you've won, Helen? I have your house keys. I've already changed the locks." My home was still in jeopardy. The judge addressed me again. "Mrs. Helen, given this new evidence, I'm postponing the guardianship hearing and ordering an investigation into Mr. Davis. You are free to go, but I recommend you secure your property." Mr. Evans nodded. "We can file an emergency order to restore your access." As we left the courtroom, Robert pushed past me, whispering, "This isn't over." Outside, I saw a moving van parked in front of my house down the street. Laura was directing men to load furniture into it. She was emptying my home. I had to stop her. But how? Mr. Evans put a hand on my shoulder. "Let's call the police. This is burglary." But as he dialed, Laura saw us and got into her car, speeding away. The moving van drove off in the opposite direction. My house was being stripped, and I had no way to get inside. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching the moving van drive away with my life packed inside. My house stood empty, the front door swinging open. I had to get inside now and see what was left before Laura or Robert returned. Mr. Evans was on the phone with the police, reporting the burglary. I needed to secure the property and find any remaining evidence against them. I was running on my last shred of energy. I felt dizzy from the day's events. Laura was still a threat. She could come back at any moment to finish the job. I walked up the driveway, my legs heavy. The lock was indeed changed. But I remembered the spare key hidden under the loose brick in the garden. I lifted it, and the key was still there. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The house was stripped bare. No furniture, no photos, just empty rooms. My heart ached, seeing the hollow spaces where my memories lived. Then, I noticed something glinting under the hallway baseboard. A small, metal box I'd hidden years ago. It contained my marriage certificate and old bank books. I pried it open, and inside was another photo, one I'd forgotten. Robert, as a teenager, standing with my father, both holding tools near the shed where the fire started. This was more proof. But as I held it, I heard a car pull up outside. I peeked through the window and saw Robert's car. He was back, and he wasn't alone. I slipped the new photo into my pocket and ducked into the closet, my heart pounding. I needed to hide until the police arrived or find a way to escape. If caught, Robert might destroy the evidence or harm me. Laura's influence was clear. She had orchestrated this theft, and Robert was her enforcer. I heard the front door open and footsteps echo in the empty house. Robert was talking to someone on the phone. Yeah, most of it's in storage. Just need to grab the last few things from the basement. He moved toward the kitchen, and I seized the chance to creep out toward the back door. But the door was bolted shut from the inside. I was trapped. Then, I remembered the basement window. It was small, but I might fit through. I hurried down the stairs, avoiding the creaky steps. In the basement, I saw boxes Laura had missed, filled with my photo albums and legal documents. I grabbed a handful and shoved them into a bag I found. As I pushed the window open, Robert's voice came from the top of the stairs. "Helen, I know you're down there." I squeezed through the window, scraping my arm, and tumbled into the backyard. I ran toward the fence, but Robert was already coming around the side. Just then, a police car turned onto the street, lights flashing. Robert froze, then sprinted back into the house. I waved at the officers, but they were focused on the front door. I had to get their attention before Robert escaped. The officers approached the house, and I hurried to meet them, holding up the bag of documents. "He's inside," I called out. One officer stayed with me while the other entered the house. I needed to hand over the new photo and ensure Robert was arrested. I was overwhelmed with emotion. I leaned against the patrol car, catching my breath. Laura was still a threat. She could be nearby, watching. The officer asked me to describe what happened, and I showed him the photos and explained Robert's history. Inside, we heard shouting, then silence. The second officer came out, alone. He went out the back and over the fence. "We have a unit searching the area." My shoulders slumped. Robert was gone, but at least the police had the evidence. Mr. Evans arrived then, holding a folder. "Helen, I have good news. The judge issued a temporary restraining order against both Laura and Robert, and we can file for the return of your property." He helped me into his car, and we drove to his office to sort the paperwork. As we worked, I felt a sense of progress, but the fear lingered. Later, Martha called Mr. Evans's phone. She had seen Laura at a storage facility across town. She gave us the address. We decided to go there with the police to reclaim my things. But as we pulled up, I saw Laura talking to the manager, pointing to a large unit. She hadn't noticed us yet. We waited for the police to arrive before approaching Laura. I needed to confront her and recover my belongings without a scene. Facing her betrayal head-on made my chest tight. It was draining. Laura was less of a danger now, but she still had the keys to the storage unit. When the officers moved in, Laura saw me and her face twisted in anger. "You can't prove anything, Helen," she shouted. Mr. Evans presented the court order, and the manager unlocked the unit. Inside, my furniture and boxes were stacked neatly. As the police supervised the loading into a rental truck, Laura was taken in for questioning about the burglary. I stood there, watching my life being restored. But I felt no joy, just emptiness. Back at my house, with the locks changed again and my things being brought in, I sat on the only chair left in the living room. Martha brought over tea and sat with me. "It's over, Helen," she said softly. I nodded, but I knew it wasn't truly over until Robert was caught and the legal matters settled. That evening, Mr. Evans called. The fire department had officially reopened the case based on the new evidence, and an arrest warrant was issued for Robert. I went to bed in my own home, but sleep didn't come. I lay awake, listening to every sound, wondering if Robert would try one last time. The next morning, the police called to say Robert had been arrested at a motel outside town. He confessed to starting the fire all those years ago, admitting it was an accident that spiraled out of control, and he implicated Laura in the recent schemes to gain my property. With that, the legal battles began to wind down. I spent the days slowly putting my house back together, each item a piece of my history returned. Martha helped me sort through boxes, and we shared stories about our lives. I decided to rewrite my will, leaving everything to charities and a trust for elderly advocacy, with Martha as the executor. The quiet resolution came not in a dramatic victory, but in the simple acts of reclaiming my space and peace. I joined a local seniors group and started volunteering, finding solace in helping others. Sometimes I sit in my garden, watching the birds, and think about my parents. I've made my peace with the past, and though the scars remain, I'm no longer afraid. My home is mine again, and I've surrounded myself with true friends. The photo album is back on the shelf, but I keep it closed, choosing to look forward instead of back. Life is quieter now, and that's exactly how I want it.